What's going on, guys? The infamous SG bringing you another Edison format deck profile. This time I'm profiling Perfect Circle, a pretty awesome deck. I think it has a lot of potential, pretty sweet mid-range deck. And we are recording on the 4th of July, so I'm going to try and edit out all this background noise, but let's get right into it. We have the full 3 copies of Hamster and 3 copies of Ryko. I like this engine a lot, and this deck just allows you to be a mid-range deck, trading 1-for-1 with your opponent, and also just setting up for your monarch plays. As we all know, Perfect Circle is a monarch deck. We want to be grinding with our opponent and then blow our opponent out in the mid-game with cards like Raiza and Caius. But these cards just very strong. We're going to be able to get cards in the graveyard, which is another thing we also want to do. And another starter we have is 3 copies of Mystic Tomato here. I've been really impressed with this card, guys. And Mystic Tomato is just extremely powerful, searches for so many powerful cards, really gets into your engines, and does a lot of awesome things. Also just sets you up for Monarchs very easily. Can apply pressure by not really committing too much to the board. Card's just awesome. You should try and build decks with it. We have 3 copies of Caius and 3 copies of Raiza. We wanted to play the ones that just want to impact the board. You know, we just want to impact the board in the mid-range game and just kind of clock our opponent once we are at an advantage state in the game. Raiza, a very powerful combination with Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Just putting multiple cards back onto your opponent's deck over and over again is what we want to be doing, so we can just clock them out of the game before the game goes too long and they get all their engines going. Just very strong 6 monarchs that impact the board. And then our fodder, what we're going to mostly use for tributing, other than the hamster and rykos, 2 copies of Dandelion, 1 copy of Treeborn Frog. We have a lot of access to the cards via the Mystic Tomato engine, going and grabbing Sangan. But Treeborn Frog, we only play 1, right? Because we're going to be able to find it very easily. And Dandelion, one of these cards that can come back over and over again, just provide a lot of defense, provide a lot of tokens for tribute fodder. Very strong little package here that, doesn't really take up too much spot. We can just find these cards very easily, and they're going to be powerful. Then we have 2 copies of Debris Dragon, sort of comboing with the Dandelions. Very strong cards. We're just going to, it's similar to a Monarch, right? It just does a lot of different things, kind of just comes down and impacts the board, whether it be by summoning Black Rose Dragon, setting up a wall with Ancient Fairy Dragon. In combination with Treeborn Frog, you can make level 8 synchros, having access to synchro, having access to those level 8 synchros like Stardust Dragon, very powerful and out of your normal summon. And this card is going to be awesome in the late game, going to be awesome to blow up your opponent's board when they're ahead on board. Very strong card. We have the tomato package of Sangan and Snipe Hunter. I've been super impressed with Snipe Hunter. Just being able to pop cards and having access to removal is just very strong, and not in universal removal, right? You can discard a card and then it can potentially pop any card, whether it's a spell or trap, monster. So it just gets rid of problems, gets rid of back row. And although you might not hit every time with your die rolls, having searchable removal is just a very powerful effect in Edison format. And Sangan, of course, just going to find a lot of powerful cards, get our Treeborn Frog, get our Dandelions out of the deck to summon and set up for tribute fodder. And then another engine here, we have the 2 copies of Malicious, 1 copy of plaguespreader. Finding these cards off Mystic Tomato is just kind of nutty, guys. It's very strong, being able to set up multiple Monarch plays by getting Malicious and sacking the first one for the Monarch, and then a following Monarch on the next turn by removing the Malicious. Plaguespreader comboing with Mali to summon powerful cards like Dark End Dragon with ease. Dark End Dragon, one of the most powerful cards in Edison format, in my opinion. You want to be summoning it. This engine does it well. And just look at the cards Mystic Tomato gets, guys. I mean, very powerful. You have a card that can search your engine pieces itself. You have access to one of the most powerful tuner monsters in the format. We have searchable spot removal for any card. Can out anything you need to out. Mystic Tomato, extremely strong card. You should build a lot of decks with it. It is very powerful, as it has an awesome suite of monsters to grab. I have 1 copy of Stratos. Not the best in this deck specifically, because we only have the Mallies to search, but I think it's a strong, powerful turn 1 play that we probably should just be playing in the deck, so we are running just the 1. And then we have Gorz as well as Dark Arm Dragon. Dark Arm you can set up early with Tomato crashing and then ending on something like a Sangan. Gorz very powerful, of course, in combination with Monarchs. We have 2 copies of Book of Moon. Very strong card, just kind of impacts the board. Also just resets your rykos and hamsters to accrue value and just kind of be a mid-ranging controlling deck. Very good card. I think I like to at least play 2 copies in any deck that I'm running hamsters in. Very strong card. 2 avarice cards is going to be awesome in the late game, putting back Debris Dragon, Caius, Raiza. Very powerful cards that we want access to multiple times over the course of a game. Also can be set up early fairly easily with cards like Mystic Tomato or Hamsters, just sending multiple monsters into our graveyard. Only 2 copies. I kind of thought 3 would be a little bit too much. I think we're not putting that many monsters in our graveyard very easily unless we're opening Tomato. But Hamster can get 4, sometimes even 5 if you mill 3 monsters off a Ryko. Getting 5 monsters in the graveyard early can't be too problematic, so we're going to just play 2 copies, and in the late game it's going to be excellent. We have copy of Future Fusion. We can summon Gaia and Absolute Zero here. Gaia by sending our Dandelion with Elemental Hero Stratos, so we can get our engine going, get Tribute Fodder, get Dandelion in the graveyard for Debris Dragon, and then we can also make Absolute Zero by sending Mali and Treeborn Frog. So very, very powerful card there. Whenever you can place it in a deck, you probably should. I think not enough people splash the Treeborn and malicious sort of small package in their decks. It doesn't have to be an Absolute Zero deck to do Future Fusion, and it's just an extremely, extremely powerful card. We have 1 copy of Brain Control, just kind of busted in this deck, helps you summon monarchs, helps you synchro plaguespreader zombie. Very strong card. Foolish Burial, sweet toolbox, sending Mali, sending Treeborn Frog, sending Dandylion. Just going to get our engines going, and pretty sweet card there. And then, of course, we have the Heavy Storm to clear away those back rows. On to trap cards, not too many. We have 3 copies of Wing Blast, a very, very strong card in combination with Raiza. One of the things we want to be doing is tempoing our opponent out of the game once we get our engines online, just dropping powerful normal summons and interacting with them in ways that really matter. And having the selection on this card lets us know that we are going to be interacting in a meaningful way, as well as discarding cards to set up our engines like Dandelion, Malicious, Treeborn Frog. Very, very strong in this deck. And I do like to play the 1 Solemn Judgment, just kind of can get them out of the game. If you Raiza them, Wing Blast them, and then Solemn the card, it's just 3 times you're stopping the card. It's just over. It's GG. Just helps clock your opponent. They're at the last 24. You need a deal. You have a Monarch in play. They try to out the Monarch. Solemn, game over. Card's just very strong and can help you kill your opponent in the late game. Quick extra deck. We have Armory Arm, Catastor, Magical Android, Goyo Guardian, Brionac, Iron Chain Dragon. I think it's solid. You don't have that much access to Dandelion. You can easily find it with cards like Sangan, but I think just with 3 hamsters, you just want to have access to the Iron Chain Dragon to make your Debris live in the very early game. Extremely consistent. So I think the card just adds a lot. And then we have Black Rose Dragon, of course, and Ancient Fairy for the Debris. We have Stardust Dragon, Darkened Dragon. This card is broken. Everyone should be building decks that can play this card. Extremely, extremely powerful in Edison format. I've already said it once or twice in profiles before. Summon this card often, and you will win games often. Very, very powerful card. We have Colossal Fighter. We have Thought Ruler Archfiend, the 2 fusions for Future Fusion, Absolute Zero, and Gaia. And then I have the Chimera Tech for the Cyber Dragons in our sideboard. And onto the sideboard, 3 copies of DD Crow, 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. I'm just always impressed with this package. I'm not going to change it. I'm putting it into mostly every deck. Just very, very powerful. Does so many great things. And having access to the 3 DD Crows just makes it so that you can easily interrupt the turn 1 Treeborn Frog that the Swap Frogs sort of set up for those Monarchy or Frog control decks. Just gets them offline, and then a Wing Blast or a Raigeki Break or any sort of card that you interact with them can kind of just flip the tempo into your favor. And having this on turn 1 is extremely important in those Treeborn Frog matchups. So I think the card's just powerful, and you want 3 of them. Cyber Dragon, of course, just a generic staple card that does a lot. But I like to play 3 copies of Vanity's Fiends in the sideboard of most of my Monarch decks, right? Because it targets the decks that just can't beat the card, just comes in consistently as 3 copies and just bam, comes down, clocks our opponent, puts a ton of pressure on them. Very, very strong card. Very, very strong in combination with ryko. They attack your hamster, you get ryko, they set a back row, flip, pop the back row, right? If they don't set a back row, then that's fine. You sacrifice the hamster for the Vanity's Fiend. If they do set a back row like Wing Blast, you just flip and pop it and then just like Vanity's Fiend them, and card's just really strong. When you get to pop a card and then drop a Vanity's Fiend, extremely broken. Card just beats a lot of decks, and we play 3 copies. We have Spirit Reaper, very strong searchable card with Mystic Tomato. It does a lot for this deck, does a lot for many decks, just lets you play a different style of game. Very, very strong. And then we have 3 copies of Soul Exchange. I like 3 Soul Exchange with the Vanity's Fiends, just helps you set them up, helps you get rid of their board and then establish your own. Doesn't really matter that you can't attack. Damage doesn't matter. You just have a Vanity's Fiend they have to deal with, and some decks just can't deal with that. Also, it lets you put more monarchs into your deck. Like if you just wanted to add 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend and keep the Raizas and Caiuses, you can just add the Soul Exchanges in, make your deck a little bit more smoother, make it a little more consistent setting up those monarchs. 2 copies of Lightning Vortex. Card's just good, guys. Put it into your sideboard. Very, very strong card. Deals with dragon boards, deals with random Blackwing boards full of 2 monsters. They overextend with cards like Bora or Dark-Armed Dragon plus Sirocco. You just Lightning Vortex gone, start beating down. Card's just excellent. You should put it in a lot of matchups. Very, very strong card. And last card, 1 MST. I had it in the main, but I ended up cutting it for the Snipe Hunter. I swapped the 2. Snipe Hunter was a little more searchable, but MST is good. You want to get rid of cards like Skill Drain. That's about it, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about this Perfect Circle deck. I think exploring Edison format by looking back and forward across Yu-Gi-Oh's history from Edison format helps you build a wide variety of different decks and just gives us a little bit of different ideas and how we can build. And I think it's pretty interesting to build that way. So let me know what you guys thought about the deck in the comments below. And without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG signing out.